So if they want to protect those by not even offering unsynced and saying the only way to get the drops is to run it synced, it doesn't bother me. It's uniquely Ultimates, right? We're not like, oh, well, there's no unsynced in the entire game, there's no way to practice. There are absolutely ways to get better at the game. So, Ultimates as 3 fights out of hundreds of fights can stay just the way they are. It does not deny access to being challenged. So, at that point, you're just saying they got their one piece of content. Like, there's people who have said they should just sell cosmetic relics for Poetics. You don't even have to do the old relics. The ARR relics, the Heavensward relics, they should just sell those for Poetics. Just glamour only. No. No. Leave that for people that like grinds and find something else that looks cool. It's not like, oh, well, there's only 6 cool-looking weapons in the game and the only way to get them is from this content. No, 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 no. There's cool-looking weapons locked behind literally every form of content. Well, it's not my favorite way. Well, get over it. Like, it's fine. You know, you don't need to cut across 6 lanes of traffic to catch an exit if an exit in 1 mile would do the same thing. You were on the left. You were in the left lane. You made a mistake. Work your way over slowly and take the next exit. But it's not my favorite way, though. I don't care. You have to be aware that, like, the world isn't just about one person. The world is about all of us sharing it. And so it is sometimes important to let one group of people have something, even if that means that I don't get to have it. That's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. So that's really all it comes down to. Is that group of people getting an ultimate because they're, you know, did Rich Campbell get all 3 ultimates by running with top level players? Yes. Did he also share a ton of awareness to a bunch of new players, and even veteran players who are just now starting to get involved in consuming content, to a bunch of Final Fantasy XIV players that have been Final Fantasy XIV players and they didn't know who they are? Yes. Are those members of different aspects of the community, such as the Balance Discord or whoever? And it's inviting people into those communities. Absolutely. Are there people that now say, okay, well, if Rich can do it, I can do it? Yes. So, like, it is a net positive all the way around. And in the process, they didn't nerf the content. They didn't break terms of service. He got good, clean clears where he played well. This was not one of them logging onto his account or some crap like that. He legit cleared them. It's fine. It's great. He could have run it with just WoW players. He could have run it off stream. He could have done it any number of ways that would not have worked out as the net positive that they did. The Rich Campbell Triple Legend streams are possibly the single most impactful event for community growth that Square Enix has not been involved in. For Square Enix not to have organized it, it's outrageous how impactful they were. So, yeah, he's dicking around in them, sure. He was making them into a piece of entertainment. He made them into a piece of content. And with Echo and Limit coming over and taking a more serious approach to the content, they're doing the exact same thing for a different group of content consumers. Alright, next up, Homer Raid. That was instant. Okay. These are level 50 quests, so I am getting actually closer. I'm done with all the level 24 quests, so none of that junk anymore. Theoretically, I could finish every side quest in the game before Endwalker launches. Theoretically, that is possible. Yes, he learned a lot faster because he was exposed to people who do their stuff. There was never a point in the pool where he felt like, okay, what I really need to work on is this, and then somebody else wiped the pool before he got to learn that. He was given an incredibly fast learning curve. It doesn't mean that he didn't climb that learning curve. What it really comes down to is, can someone else have a different experience than you? without it devaluing yours? Is that possible? Because that's what the topic comes down to. Is it possible so that somebody else can have a different experience and not at the same time damage yours? Right? I've told this story before. When I went to college, when I was in college, the Obama administration made a change to the way student loans work. And ultimately, it was for the betterment of student loans. They are in a better spot as a result of some of the changes. However, when those changes were rolled out, for the same reason the United States doesn't ever tackle the changes to healthcare, there was a time where there the old system and the new system, neither one was fully in charge. And they overlapped. And that overlap means there was a time where there was confusion into how college was being paid for. And that only affected people who were receiving federal aid for their college, which I was. I was taking out federally backed student loans, which is where the federal government gives you access to interest rates and like interest-free loans for the purpose of education. So you still have to pay back the full balance, but you're at an immense financial advantage over if you had to go out and like somehow secure that financing privately. Private loans, for example, have like a 6 or 7% interest rate on them. So for one semester, I was not given my student loans until about this time, about November, something like that. Now, I moved into my college house and moved back from going home for the summer and started paying bills in August. So for all of August, September, and October, I had no money. Now, they waived my tuition and said, you will not have to pay tuition until your loans have shown up. So my tuition was effectively paid because it was going to be paid when the loans showed up at no interest, no late fees. Don't worry about it. But my books weren't free. My school supplies for modeling stuff, because I took school in architecture, was not free. Total across undergrad and grad, I took out about $40,000. That's on. Everything else was grants or given to me by family. So I ended up spending about $40,000 on my education. And thankfully it's all paid back. So, which is a lot lower than the average, but is still a substantial amount of money for an 18-year-old to have. Okay. So that was everything I needed. Everything else is just dungeons. I mean, I can just keep throwing manually. Doesn't matter. I've done all my roulettes. And so what ended up happening is for about 3 months, I had no money for Alright, so you're going to switch to 61 for Paladin, and then healer will stay on. I think healer's all 80s. Yeah, we can hop into DPS. Yeah, I'll open up a party finder. Recruit. Dungeons. We're gonna run, something. Just highest. So, we're just running something in the 60s. So I just need something in the 60s. So like, what's a 60 dungeon? I think we're going to be running Stormblood dungeons. Siren Song C. So I'm going to throw it up for Siren Song C. But I don't know that we'll stay in that. All right. Private party, password 1111. All right. Cool. So, as long as we're above 60, that's great. If you want to join us, Bob. If you have a DPS job. That was fast. That was super fast. Okay. So let me queue into Siren Song C. There we go. I mean, we have a dedicated group. And then as soon as you hit 63, we can go up. So we're just going to be spamming dungeons. Which, I've leveled twice today. The goal is 5 levels a day. Alright. Cool. It's not my absolute, like, favorite dungeon, but honestly, Stormblood was not my favorite set of dungeons. So I don't know if that's really going to change too much as I go through this. But there's a lot of experience to be gained from doing this. I mean, so I was getting 15 to 25,000 experience per quest completed. I'm getting 25,000 experience per kill. This is way better. So. But yeah, so anyway. So I go like 3 months without money. Now, what that means is during that 3 months, I had no ability to put food on my table. Now, my parents were lucky enough to be financially in a position where my parents were able to pay my rent during that time. Not all of my roommates were in that position. But I was in a position where my parents could pay my rent. I had enough money saved up from working the summer because I had planned on having money to, like, go drinking or, like, do something, go see a movie or have fun once in a while. And so I was able to cover my bills out of my own savings because I had saved up enough money. I wasn't planning on working over winter, and so I had saved up what was supposed to be enough for the entire academic school year. And so that was able to pay my bills. And I had enough friends that were financially okay that, like, I could borrow their books to study. So I had study partners, and I just studied anytime. I just said, you just tell me when you're going to study, and I'll borrow your books when you're not studying. So if they said, oh, I like to study in the evening, I was coming and getting their book at breakfast and returning it to them at lunch. And I was just dealing with it. But what that did not cover was food. I had no ability to cover my food. Now, thankfully, the community was made aware of this because I was in this boat with thousands of students. And the local churches, I went to school in Lubbock, Texas, which has more churches per capita than at the time any city in the United States. The local churches stepped up and said that they would feed these kids lunch every day. So I could have one meal a day that was just covered. I had to walk to a local church. I didn't have a car in college. So I had to walk to a local church, but there's a dozen or more churches literally within walking distance of campus. And every day of the week, I went and listened to a different church tell me about what they believe. They weren't all Christian. I call them all churches because that's one ubiquitous term here in the United States, but they weren't all churches. And I ate at different churches for months on weekdays. And then the local Catholic church would serve you a big dinner for $1 on Sundays. And so for $1, I could have 6 meals a week covered. For $1 total. They did dollar dinner. The dollar went to, like, fund some of their student activities. And everybody paid the dollar. Everybody paid the dollar. And a lot of times when you went, like, if you were in line with, like a parishioner, you'd be having this nice conversation, they would cover your dollar. So, like, some weeks I wasn't even paying the dollar. And that is how I ate. Now, Saturdays weren't covered. So, on Saturdays, to make sure that I got at least one good meal in, me and my roommates would go work at a local soup kitchen because afterwards they would let us take any leftover food home. So, there's like a whole semester where, like, I barely ever had money to eat. And when I was going to the grocery store, the money I did have, I was literally spending it on calories per dollar. Just raw calories per dollar. So it was a ton of things like tuna, old birthday cakes that nobody came in and picked up. It's just junk. Calories per dollar was my goal. No fresh produce or anything at that point. And I spent a whole semester eating like that because I just didn't have the money. Now, from the logic that people are having with like WoW people coming in, you could say that really taught me to value my dollars. That really taught me to appreciate when I have times of plenty because I've had times of scarcity. So you could argue that I have a better understanding of the value of a dollar because I had an entire semester of suck. I was broke a lot during college, but that one semester sucked. It just sucked hard. It was awful. Now, if you argue that that provided me with value, there is a line of thought where people would say, well, based on that, everybody should experience one semester of suck. So we should just go ahead and, as a federal government, have a plan to drop the ball once every 4 years so that some point through everybody's collegiate education, they are insured to have one semester where we as a society do not give them the ability to find food, and they have to go seek it out. We should just make sure that the programs that are meant to encourage us to have college-educated citizens fall so flat that people are literally waiting for the homeless people to finish eating so that they can eat, because there was a positive element to that, and therefore, not to mention that anybody who goes through college today and doesn't have one semester where they wonder where their next meal's coming from doesn't get to experience what I did. And that's the view. That's these people that say, well, I played in Stormblood and I had to beat that ultimate, I had to beat that savage legit and nobody helped me. And you would think like, well, Chris, aren't you going to get mad if people go all the way through college and they never miss one meal? No. Like, just because I had to walk uphill in the snow doesn't mean everybody else should. I would hope that we're going to leave the world a tiny bit better for those that come after us than we found it. And that means that the group after me occasionally is going to get to do something that doesn't suck. Even though when I did it, it did suck. So no, I don't think that everybody that plays the game now should not be allowed to party. You shouldn't be allowed to party with people that know the fight. Screw off. Screw off. There's going to be plenty of challenges that they go into that I didn't. For example, people that go to college today have to live with the fact that every single moment of their college experience, which is 4 to 5 years where I changed drastically as a person. I went through whole versions of myself in college that I actively did not like because I was trying them out. I was trying them out. I knew that I didn't like where I was, and I saw how other people were living, and they looked happy. So I tried their style of living to see if it was a good fit. And it wasn't. And sometimes there was one moment where, like, Brian's brother, my college roommate, said, I can't hang out with you anymore because I don't like the person you've become. And I looked up and realized I didn't like that guy either. I was just trying that person out. And I got to do all of that in a place where, at the time, documentation on social media was optional. The group before me got to do it where they literally couldn't document it. So there's very little documentation of the generation before me. But the group after me, documentation is done without your consent. Other people are taking pictures and videos and uploading them. And you really don't have that much control over that. There will be a photo, and in the background, there will be somebody doing something stupid that one day wants to try being a senator, or run a big company, or be an actor, or whatever. They want to go be involved in a charity foundation, and somebody says, well, there's this picture of you doing something stupid when you were 19, and therefore you are not qualified to be in charge of a charity that means a great deal to you. Because you did a stupid thing during some developmental years while maintaining a reasonable GPA. You had some free time outside of a GPA and you did something stupid. So, yes, the group after me, likely the federal loan programs, especially as we start to talk about potential federal loan forgiveness, it is possible that the people after me will not have the amount of debt that I took on, they will not have the amount of financial struggle that went on that I did in college. But that's not because they won't have struggle. There will be aspects of their college experience that suck more than mine, because it's just a different time. And so the people that come into Final Fantasy now, from World of Warcraft or wherever, they get to go through it. Well, they have all the guides, and syncing makes you really powerful, and there's people that are really good that are willing to run with you. Fine. They also have to clear 300 to 400 hours of content in one go. That sounds exhausting. That sounds exhausting. I cleared it as we went through 2.0. I have never been more than one patch behind in the story. That has made this game very, very approachable for me. Even during times when I didn't like story and wanted to skip it, I've only had to push the escape key for one patch at a time. Not that bad of a gig. WoW players who don't like story, that sucks. That sucks. And people are like, well, maybe they just shouldn't play this game then. That's a stupid answer, because I didn't like story and I enjoyed it along the way. And the only reason they're not is because they have to clear 8 years worth of story in one go. And I've never had to clear more than a few months worth of story. I've even taken breaks, just never more than one whole patch cycle. So I always come back and just blast through a patch, and then a patch comes out and I do it again. So, I think that there are aspects of coming in late, right? Some WoW player comes in and says, man, it sucks that you have some really cool cosmetics and those are no longer available unless I want to go spend money on the Mog Station. Or possibly, if they're from something like the Garo event, they're just not available. Okay, well, they just have to live with that. On the other side of it, hey, it's really easy to farm up the ponies because I can literally solo them. As opposed to you got your ponies in ARR, and they were a lot harder back then. It's just different. So we just have to ask ourselves, is letting a group of people come in and play the game differently than me hurting me? And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is absolutely yes. Right? And that's why Terms of Service exists. Because if what they're doing hurts you, harassing other players has never been allowed. That's not a new change to Terms of Service. Oh, well, now they're going to enforce it and they didn't used to enforce it. No, they always enforced it. They just gave examples now. Because the community has been frustrated that when they enforce it, they feel like it's arbitrary because you never gave us examples. Right? You didn't state the rules very clearly, and then when you enforced them, it felt like it was out of nowhere. Okay, well, we're going to continue to enforce them, but now I'm going to tell you what they are. A little bit cleaner, but it's the same rules. So, if the people coming in are calling for, like, ultimates to... If ultimate gear to... Well, I just want the gear with no stats. All gear with no stats to be available to everybody. I think we should all just get ultimate weapons for poetics. Okay, well, that's different. That's different. Right? Because they're calling for something to be taken away. But if they're just playing the game as it exists, within the confines of Terms of Service, doesn't matter.